everybody, Tethlah here from Lost in Translation, home of the LitCraft mod pack. You can find us on the Feed the Beast launcher under the third-party tab using the pack code LitCraft. I'd like to thank everybody for checking us out today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, comment down below. As always, any links used in the video will be in the description, so feel free to check those out as well. Today we're going to be going over 5x ore generation using Mekanism. So remember last time when we were talking about how we can produce oxygen as a byproduct while creating our DT fuel for our fusion reactor? Well, this is where we're going to be using it. There's a reason why I told you to store it. So if we take a look here, you'll notice I've done a little bit of work with this place since the last time you guys saw it. Right over here is that oxygen I was talking about, but now we've got two more gases we're going to be dealing with. This is hydrogen chloride, and then we're also going to be dealing with sulfuric acid right here. On the side of that, we're also going to be outputting some other things. We don't really need all of it, and I don't store for instance, the chlorine and the hydrogen and just regular sulfur dioxide and trioxide and water vapor. I don't store all those. I just use them immediately. So here's our setup. Right here, this is my little production plant. This is what I'm using to create my hydrogen chloride. Over on this side, this is what I'm using to create my sulfuric acid. So you'll notice I've got the oxygen here. I'm using water, sulfuric acid. Over on this side, I'm outputting my hydrogen chloride. I'm using brine and I'm using water. So how do we do this? Well, let's take a look at this graphic. So you can see up here on the screen, at the top left-hand corner, what is in purple, that is how you're creating sulfuric acid. In the middle, what's in purple, down in the tier 4 split between tier 2 and tier 3, is hydrogen chloride. Now, starting on tier 4, if you look, you're going to notice that we have our 5x ore production. So, in your tiers, tier 1 is 2x, tier 2 is 3x, tier 3 is 4x, tier 4 is 5x. Of course, tier nothing, which is just straight ore production, is where you take the ore, you smelt it, you get a bar, right? You get an ingot, rather. So, looking here, we've got our sulfuric acid, so let's go over that first. Sulfuric acid, you can create sulfur however you want. You can use the gunpowder and hydrogen chloride in your chemical injection chamber to create sulfur, or you can use what I use, which is I use an MFR laser and I use magic crops. And that's how I get my sulfur. But you toss that into a chemical oxidizer that gives you sulfur dioxide, and then you're going to take oxygen and that sulfur dioxide into a chemical infuser. You're going to get sulfur trioxide, and then you're going to take water and a rotary concentrator to make vapor. And then you're going to take that trioxide and that vapor in a chemical infuser to get sulfuric acid. And then that sulfuric acid is going to be used in tier 4 for your 5x production. Now your lower tier, for tier 3, for 4x production, is using that hydrogen chloride. So let's look at the top left there where it has water going in the salination plant to create brine. There are other methods of creating brine, namely salt. There's a lot of other ways that you can create brine, but that's what I do personally. I use cyclic assemblers with Pam's Harvest Craft to create unlimited salt, which I then turn into brine. Anyway, I take that brine in an electrolytic separator. That's going to give me the chlorine. Another byproduct of that is going to be sodium. I have no idea what sodium's used for. I've pumped that into everything. I have yet to get a use out of sodium. So I don't know if they've got something planned in the future, but as far as I can tell, as of today, there is no usage for sodium. So I just ditch it. I let it go away. And then I take that chlorine is the other thing that it produces, and I put that in the chemical infuser. At that point, I'm going to take water and an electrolytic separator. That's going to give me oxygen, which again is used for creating sulfuric acid, and it's also used in 3x production. But the other thing you get is hydrogen. So you take your chlorine and your hydrogen in a chemical infuser, and you get hydrogen chloride, and that is used in tier 3. Alright, so switching from this flow chart, here it is. This is sulfuric acid, so all this stuff that you see over here, this is a simplified version of it. This is doing this times 6. So you'll notice this is far more condensed right here. Well, each one of these is a separate module. Okay? You'll notice this is spread out to make it easier to see what's going on. So you just toss sulfur in here. I'm already using it, but basically your sulfur goes into the chemical oxidizer, and then your chemical oxidizer is going to pump into this chemical infuser along with pulling in your oxygen. This chemical infuser is then going to pump into another chemical infuser along with water vapor, and that is going to output your sulfuric acid. Now I store my sulfuric acid so I can transport it between dimensions as liquid sulfuric acid. But you can stop here if you're just going to pump it straight into your chemical dissolution chamber. So, for 4x production, we need hydrogen chloride. Far simpler. All you're going to need is your brine. You're going to pump that into an electrolytic separator, which is going to output the chlorine, which you're going to use, and sodium, which is useless. So I just dispense of the sodium. And then we're going to take water into another electrolytic separator. It's going to give us hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen you can use over here. The oxygen can also be used in a purification chamber for the tier 2 3x production, and I'll show you guys that in a moment. So that hydrogen and that chlorine then gets turned into hydrogen chloride, and me personally, I pump it into a rotary concentrator, and I store it so that way I can, cross transit into other dimensions. So that's it, guys. That's it right there. We've got a lot going on. Let's head over. Oh, so remember I was talking about there's more ways to create brine. There's one way, your brine tanks. Here's the other way. This is what a lot of us use. Be aware that on servers, these cyclic assemblers can cause some tick lag. So if we look here, you can see, looking at the map, how much lag there is. This is using Opus, by the way. I'm using the mean time overlay, but you can see that this is creating a lot of lag. You see the most amount of lag is being created by all this junk over here. Tons of lag, but it's not that bad. If we were to go on ahead and take a look at the TPS, 15.87. If we were to look right here, TPS 18.52, so it's a little bit better. If we come over here and take a look at what it's like next to a brine tank, we're looking at 17.54, so still not too bad. Now these, I can tell you, are going to lag out a little bit. TPS, you notice that we're at 14.08. This is actually the lowest point. Now, the reason why I'm pointing this out is that this matters. If you're producing brine, which isn't what's happening here, but let's say that you're producing brine at 12 TPS on your server, but you're using it over here in one of your systems at 20 TPS. Let's say, for instance, that you know for a fact that this setup outputs the exact amount of brine that you need at the same time over there. Well, if this is producing at 14 TPS and that's using at 20 TPS, this is not going to be producing fast enough. So just a little food for thought, guys, when you're creating these systems. What your TPS looks like here we're at 17.24, it matters because that means that you're producing at a different rate in this chunk than you might be using over there. Anyway, so a little technical stuff. But what I do is I have this schematic which is making salt. So what it does is it takes water with a Pam's Harvest Craft pot, and it creates salt. This salt goes into a chemical oxidizer. That chemical oxidizer is then creating brine. Okay, that's one way to create even more brine. What I found was I was not creating enough brine using these towers, so I had to make more brine. All right, let's hop over into the other world and take a look at what we got going on. So looking at this flowchart, we're going to start with tier 1 and work our way up to tier 4. So looking at tier 1, what we have is we have enrichment, where we're creating dust. Okay. If we go up to tier 2, we have purification, where we're creating clumps, which gets turned into dirty dust. That then drops down to tier 2 to create clean dust. Now if we're looking at tier 3, we're using chemical injection. Tier 4, we're using crystallization. So, each step of the way, when you're using the prior tier, it is a 1-for-1 conversion. If you're using ore, that's where it's a different story. So, looking at this, let's look at what we have going on here. So, you'll notice I've got 3 modules here. This one is our smelter. This is our 2 through 4x, and then this is going to be our 5x crystallization. Let's start with 2. So, starting with 2, you have enrichment. If we were to put 1 ore in here, okay, this 1 ore is going to output 2 dust. That 2 dust, let's say for instance we put just 1 ore in here, that's going to give us, I don't know where the heck it went. There we go. That's going to give us 1 ingot. Now we put 1 ore in there, that gave us 2 dust. That 2 dust is then going to give us 2 ingots. Right? So enrichment outputs dust. The next step is purification. Purification, we're going to toss 1 in there. This is going to use the oxygen, which is going to create the dirty dust. And then the dirty dust is going to output clean. And then we're going to have our 3x. We toss our 3x in here, blah, blah, blah. You're going to output 3 iron. So let's move on to chemical injection. Chemical injection is using hydrogen chloride. If we toss 1 in there, we're going to notice chemical injection creates shards. Those shards then create our clumps. That creates our dirty. That creates our clean. We now have 4. So you'll notice here we've got the 3 from last time. Now we've got 4. So you'll notice each step of the way I'm still using only 1 ore each time. But each time you'll notice we're graduating from just using straight ore to using all the way up through our chemical injection purification. So there you go. Now this is where we start getting a little bit more complicated. Now we're going to use sulfuric acid to induce crystallization. Crystallization needs 3 machines, okay? Those 3 machines are your dissolution chamber, your chemical washer, and your crystallizer. The chemical washer takes water, and then your dissolution chamber takes your sulfuric acid. So, we're going to go on ahead and we're going to drop 1 ore in here. This is going to create an ore slurry for us. That ore slurry then gets pumped through the chemical washer. That creates clean slurry on this side. Unfortunately, I'm not keeping up, so you're not seeing it in action, but you're going to here in a second. And then that clean ore slurry is then going to get turned into crystals here in the crystallizer. The crystals then get dumped in here, and we go through each of those steps just like we did before, and you end up with 5 dust. And there you go. Oops, I don't want to try to do the stone bricks. Voila. Our 5 dust is going to output 5 iron ingots. Those 5 iron ingots, there you go. There you go, 5 iron ingots. Now, that's all fine and dandy. Using this setup right here as is, even with all of the speed modifiers that you can do, if we were to go on ahead and let's grab a full stack of iron. I didn't mean to do that. Let's stack all this up real quick so you can see that we're actually using full stacks. So there's a stack of 64. Here's a stack of 64. So I'm going to go on ahead and divide this up, okay, like so, into 12 even piles. And I'm going to keep this in one pile. So basically what I have set up over here is our souped up version. That the smelter over here, there are factory versions of all these machines. The factory versions, depending on which tier you're in, depends on how much it outputs. The elite smelting factory outputs 6. Okay? So if I were to go on ahead and grab myself some iron ore, I'm not going to stick it in there because I want you to see exactly how much is in there. If we pop up right here and go to iron, you'll notice I have no iron ingots, right? I'm going to show you. I'm going to get 320 in under a minute. So we have our elite smelting factory, which is going to pull from our enriching factory, alright, which is the same stuff as over there, but you'll notice this can handle 7 at a time. Crushing, purifying, and injecting. All of this is getting pulled from my system over here. I'm big on aesthetics, so I wanted to show you guys half and half. This is what it looks like when it's complete. See how it's all neat and tidy? If we go down below, it's all neat and tidy up here as well. You can see everything is organized all perfectly. And here, this takes all my different types of ores from the ME and exports it into this crystal chest. This chest then feeds into each one of these dissolution chambers. The dissolution chamber, I can run 12 of them at a time. So that's why I split this up into 12 blocks. So I'm going to take a look real quick. In 5 seconds, we're gonna start the clock. So we're now at 16 minutes. So I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to load this bad boy up. All 12 of these. And you can see just how fast I'm gonna pump these out. So I'm pretty proud of my work. I like to make stuff that looks nice, in case you can't tell. The way that I do that is I use forge micro blocks, okay, to cut stuff up to make covers for things that I have to use the mechanism side for, right? And then what I do is I use Ender IO to create the rest. Alright, so if we come over here, we'll notice that we're producing a ton of crystals all at once because I'm able to pull from all 12 of those machines, and it's literally going through that fast. If you look over here, it's, I mean, this thing is literally producing quicker than it can pull from here. As you go each step of the way, you'll notice there's a couple more as you go up until you get to here, and you're still not at full stacks. So, as of right now, I started loading all those up 1 minute and 15 seconds ago. Let's take a look. We're already at 271. So, like I said, usually it's under a minute. Take into account it took me about 30 seconds to go through and load up each one of those. If I were doing it automatically like I normally would, we just hit 90 seconds. Okay? So if I did it automatically like I normally would, it's instantaneous. Loading is instantaneous. So cancel out that first 30 seconds. 1 minute, you got 320 iron ingots out of one single stack of iron ore. So while I'm finishing up, I'm going to show you guys how I do the sulfur. We're going to go on ahead and time how quickly this goes. So we're at 18 minutes now. We're going to let this thing run, and we're going to see how quickly this outputs our dust. We're not going to go on ahead and run it through the smelter because it's almost a moot point at this juncture. Because maybe you're not using a smelter, maybe you're pumping it straight into a smelter. You can do that as well. So anyway, as of right now, we're sitting at 30 seconds, and we've only got 10. So 30 seconds, you got 10. That's slow. So we start at 18 minutes. I'm going to go over this real quick. So right here, I've got my sulfur crops going. The other thing that I do, like I said, is I've got my MFR lasers over there using a yellow a lens. And right now, I'm trying all sorts of different stuff to decide how I'm going to do these crops. Oh, great! There's bats down here. But here's where you can see I'm automatically turning things into dust. What I'm doing here is this actually pulls in my two different types of sulfur ores. One type of sulfur ore that it pulls in is the neither, the other one is the regular, and this pulverizes it into dust, which then imports into my ME system. So all my dusts go into the ME system. And then my sulfur dust, you can see I've got a ton of sulfur dust. And then over here, I've got my cyclic assembler, alright, which is taking my sulfur essence and using 9 of the material, it's creating more sulfur dust. So then that's how I end up with all my dust. And then I take that sulfur dust back over to the other world, and you know, I run it through everything. So It's been 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And we're at 1 stack, okay? So that means it's going to take 8 minutes in total, just shy of 8 minutes, to output 320 ingots. Where doing it this way with the Elite factories, I was able to do it in 1. Alright? 1. Took me 1 minute, where with this it took 8. So yeah, guys, there you go. That's 5x ore production, all the way down to 2. It's a thing of beauty in this mod. It's almost too easy, but I love it. So looking at this flowchart, you can see we went over how to make that sulfuric acid up there in the top left-hand corner in Tier 5, how to make the hydrogen chloride with our oxygen byproduct that we're using in the purification chamber. You'll notice that Tier 5 uses the dissolution chamber, chemical washer, and the chemical crystallizer. Crystals, that's our 5x. Shards, that's our 4x. Clumps, that's our 3x. Dust is our 2x. So there you guys go. That is our 5x ore production. I hope this helps you guys out. Be looking in the future for other things that we have coming out. Our next one is going to be done by Nis. That's going to be... what is it that Nis is going to do? I think he's going to be going over different methods of mining. So the different methods of mining that he's going to go over is a couple methods in Overworld. He's going to then go over a couple methods that are really good to use in the mining world. Our mining world gets reset once a month. It's always on the first Monday of the month. Gets reset. And then you also have the end. The end is pretty awesome, and he's going to go over how you get there and then what you can do to mine there as well. And then in the future, he's also going to be going over the new version of Magic Crops. The new version of Magic Crops is a little bit more in depth than it was in the past, so he's going to be going over that as well. So be looking forward to those. As always, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to check out our YouTube channel. All the linkies are down below, including the Mechanisms website. Remember how I'm always talking about how my texture pack is different? That's Life HD. That link is down there as well. Feel free to head over to litcraft.net for more information about the LitCraft mod pack and the Lost in Translation community. Our community, our mod pack, this channel, the public server, all of it is driven by your guys' generosity. So to check out how you can help us out, head over to our Patreon page, which is also in the links below. Of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. As always, guys, go out there, have fun, punch some blocks.